6:40 Friday, October 24th, calling the select board meeting to order. There's quite a few people here tonight, and there's one addition to the agenda that we'll add at the end. First thing that we did tonight was a site inspection. Now we're going over the informational and discussing the presentation for the Old Town Hall or Little Lecture Hall. There's been a lot of questions. This is a special select board meeting for the purposes of the public. Everything that we say tonight will be repeated Tuesday, maybe improved if there's questions. There's also been questions about how the vote will go on Tuesday. And it is a town meeting. It will be from the floor just as every other town meeting. Think about when you vote on our budget in March, it's a yay or nay. People do have the ability to request a paper ballot if they want. At the meeting, there's no absentee voting. It's a town meeting. Okay, the addition that we have is accepting a resignation, and guess we'll get into the information discussion. Adrian, take the floor, and other board members will chime in. I'd like to hold the questions until the end because of the amount of people, if the board's okay with that. But write your questions down and ask them after the presentation, please.
Hello, thank you all for coming tonight. My name is Adrian Parker. I'm a select board member. So tonight we are here to talk about the lecture hall and why the town is inquiring purchasing it, and why it could be beneficial to our town to acquire. So yes, tonight we'll talk about the background and history of lecture hall. We'll touch on that. We'll talk about the recent developments, its potential uses. We'll cover some financial breakdowns and talk about decision and next steps. So, the Low Lecture Hall was built in 1832. It was first built as a congregational church. It was then gifted to the town of Johnson in 1854. It was renovated with a stage and hosted school plays, graduations, Grange meetings, shows, and movies. It was then leased by Vermont Studio Center. And then in 1984, they purchased it from the town.
No,
1998, sorry. And when they did that, they put in a deed restriction that included a right of first refusal to the town. So what that meant was if Vermont Studio Center decided to resell the building, because of in the deed it said that they would need to come to the town first to see if we wanted to purchase it before they went and purchased or sold it to someone else. And presently, the weather vane on top of it is owned by the town. And so recent developments, how VSC got here, and I'll just have Hope touch on that if you're okay with that.
Does this microphone pick me up? Or
Yeah, you can point it up more for you standing if you'd like.
Sure. Well, okay, so it's hard to say where to face.
I face that way.
Face. Okay. So Vermont Studio Center has had the building since 1998. It has been core to our programming during that period of time. We used it for three seasons, so it's a seasonal building for us. And over time, we've been using it less and less for programmatic purposes, so it's really been underutilized for a while. Now, since the flooding in 2023, we have other priorities across our campus, and so it is way down on the list. So as a result, the board of directors of Vermont Studio Center came together and discussed what we should be doing with Flow in our campus master planning process, realized it really doesn't have a large programmatic role for us. And so we have come to the town to see about the right of first refusal, because we would love for it to stay in the community. It is really a beloved building, and there are so many stories about amazing things that have happened there. So
Yes,
that's you.
I can talk about that.
All right.
And like Hope mentioned, they came to us in February first, just to briefly mention that they no longer needed it in their future plans. And then in July, they came to a select board meeting and firmly shared that they were going to remove it from their future plans. And at that time, the select board expressed firm interest in acquiring it. And we talked about potential pricing. So when we talked about pricing, we decided on $1 plus $7,000 and some change, and the 2025 village and town taxes, and $3,000 for closing costs. So when we decided that, Hope went back to her board to make sure that was okay, and then came back to us to say that that was okay. And then from there, the select board decided to come to the voters to see what their opinion was. So yes. And then this is just a broad list of potential uses. It's not exhaustive. And with these potential uses, if we did acquire the building, we would create a committee or a task force or some kind of group to do some research and potentially surveys to figure out what would be the best community use. So some examples of what it could be: committee or a community event space for meetings, lectures, cultural programming, for instance, like theater, music, film screenings, art shows. There could be an education aspect to it for after-school programs, adult learning classes. Could be something with health and wellness, like fitness classes, yoga. Could be child care center for preschool or daycare. Could house senior programs. It could even be a nonprofit hub or office meeting space for local organizations. Could be a business incubator for a shared workspace for entrepreneurs or makers. And it could also house tourism, heritage, small museum. And it could also play some part in emergency use. And again, with that, that's really what the community wants from it. And if we want to do anything with it and want to own it. So I think that whatever we create it and figure out like what its best use case would be, like with the Hopeland House, we had the Historical Society pretty much spearhead that. And with this case, it's kind of more open flow where we can make whatever we want with it. So yeah. So now we're going to talk about the financial breakdown, and I'll let Evan talk about that.
Certainly. So you can go to the next slide, and I'll stand up so everybody can see my face.
Okay.
So the actual costs, these are just initial costs. This is not a yearly cost. Acquisition costs totals 10,000 and change. Now that is $1 for the property, reimbursement to Vermont Studio Center for this year's tax burden, which is village tax, town tax, and school tax, as well as an estimated amount of $3,000 for closing. So it's not perfect, but that would tell you the acquisition cost. There is going to be a cost for a structural evaluation by an architect that has been recommended several times from a building inspection that we had done. There is a foundation repair that is needed relatively urgently. And there is a verbal quote of $150,000 for that cost. And we have to relocate the electric panel to be by code. There's a verbal $4,000 cost for that. And the annual maintenance we get into in the next slide, right? Or no, that's fine.
Okay.
We can go. So holding questions till the end.
Hazardous way to forgot that.
Holding questions till the end, but thank you very much. Yearly costs for the taxpayers, the board got this together and we're trying to provide an accurate picture of what we think it could cost. Nothing is perfect, and the studio center is more than gracious about sharing the utility bills. So the loss of revenue we're showing in this slide. The studio center paid $2,297.55 for town taxes in this tax year. We would lose that revenue, so while that is not an expense, it would increase the tax burden on the taxpayers by $2,300, if you round it. The water and sewer bill currently is $540, but it is off most of the time. And the electric bill for a year is $1,000, and as Hope said, it's a seasonal use, it's not busy every day. That is what the column on the left shows, with the total on the bottom of current yearly costs if nothing changed with the town, if we left the water off and used it very, very sparingly. The potential conditions, about the only structure that we have utility bills that's semi-comparable, is the Holcomb House, so you'll see it's compared to the Holcomb House 2024 expenses at the top. Again, the loss of revenue is there, that is not an actual cost, that is just added to the total burden. The water and sewer bill for the Holcomb House was $775, right around there. Exact numbers are up there. The electric bill was $1,298.98. The heat for the Holcomb House was $4,609, along with the telephone and internet bill, $1,400 and change. We threw in a potential cost if the town takes ownership of $1,000 for mowing, as well as $1,000 cost for plowing, and an estimated $2,500 for maintenance, and another $2,000 for miscellaneous. And this whole graph here is not perfect. It will change depending upon the use of the building, but we're trying to give the taxpayers a realistic look at what this building could cost yearly after acquisition. And that cost, if this is the scenario, is $16,900 a year, which is pretty close to Holcomb House. And at the top, you'll see our grand list of $2,446,000. That's what all the properties in Johnson combined for, divided by 100. Well, that sounds complicated, but that is up there so that the taxpayers can see that 1 cent on our grand list raises $24,465.45. So if this building were to go through similar utilities as the Holcomb House, maybe by town meeting, we could throw in a percentage, but it's less than a penny increase on your taxes yearly. That's after acquisition and not with the foundation, obviously. This is just yearly costs spreadsheets to give the taxpayers an idea of yearly costs.
And then this is just a list of the grant opportunities. Because it would be owned by the town, it'd be eligible for a lot of grants, historic preservation grants. So that in the packet, it has the same list, or no, does it? Okay, well, there's the historic preservation grants, historic preservation HCB. These would be coming from the Vermont Agency of Commerce and Community Development, or the Vermont Division of Historic Preservation, or the Vermont Housing and Conservation Board. So this is just to give an idea of what's possible out there for if the town owned it to go after grants. Doesn't mean we would get the grants, but that's what's out there. In addition to these, there's also the possibility of public funding opportunities that the town can pursue. So why does this all matter? For one, the historic value of keeping, if by acquiring this building, we have control of preserving it and keeping it as is. Like I mentioned before, all the possible uses with turning it into a community space that's probably would be free to the public for uses. It could support our culture and art and whatever the residents would like. And like I said, like local control, we don't know what an outside group or business would turn it into. So this would give residents control of that. And like I mentioned before, with grant funding, there's a lot of grants out there for historic preservation from the town to go after. And along with that, along with that, I just think that, it would be something that could really add to our community and, if we want that. And so what we will vote on Tuesday is will the voters authorize the select board to purchase on terms and conditions agreeable to 0.32 acre property located at 58 Lower Main Street, currently owned by the Vermont Studio Center and referred to as the Joe and Emily Low Lecture Hall for a price of $1 plus village and town taxes in the amount of $7,000 for tax year 2025 plus estimated closing costs of $3,000. I'd like to note that this article is advisory and non-binding. The select board's intent is to follow the will of the voters, but believes it prudent to reserve the right to make the final determination to protect the town's interests in the event of unforeseen circumstances and or new information becomes available. So tonight is just an informational meeting, and Tuesday is the special town meeting where at the elementary school where we'll vote at 6 o'clock. It'll be a floor vote, not a paper vote. And if approved, the legal transfer process will begin. And from the select board side, we'll put together a community planning process. And yeah. Any questions?
Thank you. Can I get a show of hand of how many questions there are just to judge this? That's not too many. 8 or so. Does anybody have time constraints? Need to go first? Mary Lou? Oh, sorry. Yes,
Oh, Cynthia.
Cynthia, sorry.
Fine. So, two-part question. One is the foundational work so bad that we can't wait until we can actually get a grant to help pay for it? And the other piece of question that goes with that is who do we have now in town that can pursue grants?
Want to take that, the foundation question.
Yeah, so we had the state fire marshal look at the building. And he said before it could be open for public use, it would need a structural engineer to make a determination on it. Which may not condemn it. You know, it's only in the event that a structural analysis says that it would be condemned.
Meaning the foundation.
The foundation. The quote that was given was for 3 sides, and that included perimeter drain behind the building and 2 sides below footer and out to the catch basin. When that foundation work was done last time, there was no drains on Main Street. So there was nowhere to put that water, where now we have the opportunity to dig, to trench deeper and to bring that footing drain even lower and out to the street. So it could not have been preserved in a manner that we can preserve now. And it also includes parking along the left side of the building, so that way it would provide some slant parking along the access. And then regrading in the front, the removal of the trees and kind of flattening of those 2 bumps, if you will. Removal of the stairs and then adding new stairs in front as well. So it looks like a big number, but there's a lot of work that happens there that kind of stabilizes the structure. I don't think there's any immediate rush from what we saw. It looked like the corners of the building have not moved, and they're only pushed in areas on the north side where the snow doesn't melt, and it's presumed that it's from the spring, the spring freezing and thawing and pushing that in. So that could either be done manually or with new foundation.
And some of the grant sources
Go for it.
could cover all or part of that expense.
And she asked,
Right?
who's writing the grants? She asked.
So right now we have a community and economic development specialist on an interim basis, but we will begin looking for a new one soon. But as well as that, Low County Planning Commission a lot of times is a great resource for the town. In terms of grant writing, grant administration, as well as our town administrator. There's support for that. Going this way, I see Eric had a question. You didn't have a question? You gotta have. You're holding it in. Okay. Bruce.
You did hit the hazardous materials assessment.
in progress and stuff, it says here, that could be astronomical. If you part of the one, that's been delayed, so if I said that, it'd be very expensive. For one. The second question is, you're gonna do a lot with this for your park.
Both wonderful questions. We talked at length a couple weeks ago about having all of the hazardous materials assessed. And we had decided at the time to do a building inspection. But part of the reason for this being a advisory vote is we would probably have a hazardous assessment done before final purchase. Again, to protect the taxpayers of the town. Parking is a difficult one with that area, and I am not a traffic engineer. If any board members have ideas, we would probably lean on LCPC or some sort of study to look at options there to get somebody that's an expert in it and make a determination on the best path for the town.
With
So-
the foundation work, there would be parking spaces added on the left side.
So I'm gonna give you 5 or 6 parking spaces.
That's correct. 6 to 8 was the estimate from measuring it out. Yeah.
Next question. Anybody? Pat,
What's the heating plan? Is there thoughts on, are you gonna heat it? It's just gonna be pre-season to start?
so I'm getting questions from Zoom. I'm just gonna repeat your question. The question is, what's the heating system and what are the plans on use or just plans on use for heating system?
It's basically gonna run 4 seasons, so you're gonna heat it in the winter.
Oh, the question is, are we gonna heat it in the winter? Because other board members could speak as well, because there's not a full plan yet for use of the building. Can't really speak to that. But there's good chances that we could turn it on for events in the winter time for the town.
Yeah, I think our expectation is that it would only get intermittent use initially, so it wouldn't be heated all the time. And then until it's renovated or refurbished or what have you.
I saw you, Scott. Jesse had his hand up first. Jesse?
Yeah. I did see in the inspection report that the oil furnace didn't have a recent inspection. And hadn't been serviced. Was it working? Just hadn't been serviced and.
It was on tonight, actually.
Well, so for Zoom, the question is, because the inspection report said that the heating system hadn't been inspected in a while. The question was, is it operational? Hope says yes, and it was actually on tonight while we were in there. That's your only question?
I had just one other.
Go for it.
For Hope, actually. So just based on that timeline. The VSC had leased it. I guess what has changed in your programming or the calculus of how you're using that building that led you to this place?
So in 1998, when we purchased it from the town, we had significantly more visiting artists and writers coming annually. We now have 32. But previously we had, double that number, maybe triple. So all of our talks and readings were occurring there. And there's actually people in the room who know a lot more about the reality of that with George. Who could speak to the details of it, but that's the main thing that has changed programmatically. The other thing are issues with access and but just various accessibility things for sound and whatnot that have become more necessary for the populations that we're serving. So, right now we're able to deliver on that a little bit better.
Thank you.
Can people on Zoom hear the questions and answers?
No, that's why I'm repeating the questions.
The answers.
Everybody could come up and say their question into the mic if they'd like, or I can repeat. I'm not trying to be rude. Scott, if you want to go, you can step right up.
Yeah, no, you can repeat.
So I'm sort of for getting this building for the town, but I looked at it today and was sort of looking at the sill, that building that's wet and rotted. Where it needs the foundation or brim joist, whatever you want to call it. And I noticed in here that you're in the process of having somebody look at all that. And even today, where the seating is, when people walked in before bounced, which is sort of a little bit of a red flag. What happens if this review isn't done by the time you want to sign the paperwork? And this is my fear. The open house looked like a really good idea, but following the history of that house, it's sort of turned into a bit of a money pit. I hate to put it that way. And I just don't want to have another building that turns into a money pit. Even though I think it's a great idea for the town to get it, I'm just worried about that part. And I think that's what I'm convinced about. That it passed.
Yeah. So Scott's question was he had noticed some rot on the box beam sill plate. And he's wondering if we don't get the inspection report in time. About knowns, we have the inspection report in hand and it does lay that out. The rot on the sill plate as well as, lead paint. No GFCI in the back, and a bunch of littler things. Not that the rot's not a small thing, but we have the inspection report. And it's a known, we don't have costs for every item.
Oh, and the only other thing I have is follow up and then I'll be quiet is ADA compliance. That building, I'm hearing all kinds of wonderful ideas for that building, but as it is now, I don't think it's ADA compliant. Are you close?
It is, actually.
That is-
Space up on the back.
Where do you get a wheelchair into that building?
With the parking space in the back.
Really?
Yeah, and that's have the way up, and everything inside is ADA.
So if you
Yeah, it's
had,
big enough.
yes, they of Vermont looked at that building, they would say that building. was
Well,
ADA
that, we
compliant.
did that to meet the ADA part.
Oh,
It couldn't get used to it.
We had an architect look at it as well, and the second floor balcony. Would be allowable if it was sprinklered at a cost roughly 60,000. You could use a second floor as well, if the building was sprinkled with the single exit and a railing as well. To meet the railing height of 42 inches. Yeah.
Jesse, I believe
Quick comment, but yeah, go ahead.
there was another question from over there. No questions? Okay, go for it, Jesse.
Well, I mean, I encourage everyone to look at the inspection report. It is on the town website. The sill rot was identified, but was termed superficial. So they didn't have any concerns about it. And all of the images in the report, I mean, when we moved to the town, we bought an 1810 farmhouse, so it looks very familiar to us. But at the same time, the building stood for 200 years. I mean, and they're saying that the foundation hasn't moved significantly. So, anyways, I'm not, I guess I'm an engineer, but not a structural engineer. So, I just wanted to say that so people could review the inspection report.
Thank you. George?
Yes, I just wanted to say, because I know that building pretty well, is everything except for the foundation of that building was being built. All the walls came down, when we first acquired it for a lease in 1984, went in and ripped the whole place open, replaced all the inner boards, replaced everything. And years later, we replaced all the windows, had them rebuilt, had this tower rebuilt, had the floors redone, everything pretty much except for the foundation has been rebuilt.
Thank you for that.
New roofs all around tower, as well as Doug McCarty did a beautiful job on that tower, if you remember that. There was a number of stages when we did it, 84, probably 95, and 99, we didn't know the revision. So we put a lot into that building, and I think that the town should be happy with it.
Thank you. I do see a question on Zoom, only one. Could we take that?
Hi. So sorry, I'm not there in person. I'm not feeling well, as you can hear. But I have a couple of questions. And the first thing I want to say is it's a beautiful building, and the Studio Center has taken care of a lot of really beautiful buildings and made them better in Johnson. So I just want to say that right up front before I ask any questions. I think it's really important to set full context of what we're talking about, though. And so I have a few different questions around how this plays into the bigger picture in Johnson. So, so sorry, Evan, but I'm going to ask you a few questions, and I sympathize with you in advance. But my first question is,
My stomach hurts, I gotta go home.
my first question is, how many properties and structures does the town currently own right now that
What-
has some planned or outstanding development or maintenance need?
That don't have?
No, that do. The don't is a smaller number. I want to know the do. So how many
Oh.
structures or properties does the town have total? And of those, how many have something that is either needed or is in progress or is outstanding?
I'm just gonna go through the list. That's cool. The Holcomb House needs work. The Historic Society has been clear about that. The library is being worked on. There's work that needs to be done at the municipal building. The town garage does not have any needed work, although the MERP grant, hopefully will bring some energy savings there. The pavilion at the soccer field is still standing pretty good. And the rail trail building, the trailhead, is in pretty good shape, getting some more work done to it, but that's already allocated money. So
And the old mill house. And then we have Jewett property. So
Well,
I just
the mill house is jointly owned as well as the village garage.
Yep.
Yes, I'll say the mill house.
Yep. And then there's the big project and the Jewett property. I think that's all just important context. I'm not going to state opinion about all of that, other than it's a lot. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody's aware of those things. And so my follow-up to that, though, is something that's a little more pointed in that I worry for all of you, frankly, but for me too, that the town has capacity to manage this many projects, even if we have funding, which I don't think is true for some of the things you listed. So does the town have capacity to manage this many things all at once?
How's the board feel about that one? Are you asking for my independent opinion or the board's?
I would love to hear it all.
Go for it, Paul, this way.
Thanks, Scott, you are, Evan. It's a good question, Beth, and honestly, when you start something new, you don't really know the answer to it. We would certainly be looking at leaning heavily on the board, but leaning heavily on citizen input as well. As Adrian said in her presentation, we would certainly have a task force or a committee who would be leading the charge on the house of the electoral. And if we go that way, it would require the whole village effort, no question about it.
I think the board could handle almost anything, but probably after March, I won't have to worry about it.
I second that motion. It's a good question. With the pending departure of, Rosemary, us looking for a CEDS and some other news that will come up after that. There's a lot of irons in the fire for sure. Your question was direct, as their capacity. I don't think we would be doing anything with the building right off the bat. I think it would be a acquire and sit until there's actually labor hours and capacity to handle it. That's the way I see it.
Yeah. I agree with Evan that, you know, there is a lot of things going on in town. We have a lot of properties already. And I think we can handle it. I would like to, like Evan said earlier, that we have a interim community economic development specialist. I would like to see that role expanded a bit and hopefully with a new person, we would have a lot of grant opportunities come in with that new role. I don't know, I think it's possible if we want it, and the time is what it is right now, like this opportunity came to us now, and if we don't want it, then it's not gonna come again. So it is right now, and I agree, it might sit for a little bit until we figure out exactly what we wanna do with it and what we want it to be, but if we can hold our visions in our head of what we want it to be until then I think it would be great. Yeah.
And I'd just add, good question, Beth, important question. I think when we do the planning, if we acquire the building and we do the planning and appoint a task force and figure out what we want to do with it down the line, that management of the building can be part of that. Making a plan for just who's gonna, I think it might depend greatly on what it's used for. It could be another group that is managing events, et cetera, and they would have a role in managing the property. But a lot of unknown.
And I'd just like to add on that, as we know with historic buildings like this, they fluctuate in what they can be. And so maybe we want it to be something bigger and, elaborate and really great for the community, but it can be something else until we can get it there. So if we want it to be something more low maintenance and easier for a bit, we can do that. When it's in our hands, we can do whatever we want. Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Any further questions?
Yeah, one other thing I just want to say, thanks everybody for all of that. I can see a lot of potential use for the building too. But I do just worry about where we are as a town. I think there's a lot of things happening, and I worry that if you have many priorities, you don't have any priorities. So I think that's important to state. So I think it's important to know what your priorities are. And the last thing I just want to say around historic preservation, I know that was part of the pitch to buying the building, and I agree, like I like the building a lot. I think it's a great building. I'd love to see gymnastics in it, by the way. But the town doesn't have to be part of that necessarily. If the studio center chose, I believe they could write in something around historic preservation in the deed. So I just want to say that the town doesn't have to be the only option. And I know that it's outside of the taxpayer and the select board's hands. If we don't do something, it's not our choice. But I just want to say that. So thanks.
Thank you. Are there any further questions from the public? You were second.
That's, I'm Diana Osborne, by the way, and Beth's final comment made me remember some of the headlines we've been seeing in the local paper lately about the actions of community trusts, doing everything from the Elmore store to Woolcock Forest, and biking there, and it seems like community trusts are a viable alternative for approaching these kinds of projects when the select board might be spread thin or have a lot of different priorities. I wonder if the select board would consider anything like taking advantage of the opportunity now to get the building with the idea of perhaps transitioning it to a community trust to carry out the big project.
Wonderful question. To my knowledge, we haven't actually talked about that model. It's a very interesting model to me. I think we would consider it. Is that accurate as an option?
Consider it.
But like Mike, I won't be here in March anyways, so.
I have imagined that very much as a possibility. We don't currently have a community trust that could receive it. So the option is the town and acquiring it for all kinds of future possibilities, including that.
Yeah, I would just add that I think the door is wide open on all the possibilities. If the town doesn't part it, we would then have a series of meetings to decide what are we gonna do with it, how do we wanna structure that? Maybe there's a commercial opportunity there, there's all kinds of possibilities that we all would have to decide collectively how to do that and then make a 5-year plan and, you know, I think everyone made a good point earlier that we don't have to do everything all at once. We have to do some initial stabilization, but it's not immediate need. And then we can grow with it as we go. So look for grants and work at it.
There was a question from Hope. I'm sorry, Eric.
Oh.
You go, Hope, please.
Question?
Actually, Joy, but I'll do it.
I asked Adrian your name.
Yeah, well, goodness, Danny. I can also Joy.
Joyce?
I recently moved to Johnson to marry my beloved and to grow roots where we are here now full time and working at the college. And I wanted to just comment, if it's comfortable, on the inquiry around capacity and labor hours. There are 2 bridges to what I offer professionally. One is being satiated now at the college. My academic science side is in a well place. But what I've been looking forward to and curating my energy for many months is where the artistic, event management, and accessibility side of things can have a place to serve our town. So when we speak about capacity and we think about hours, there are people like me that are extremely excited to help with finding resources financially, get this going, keep it going, and if we play our cards right, we bring revenues back into the town. We all know towns in northeastern Vermont that are successful because of providing theater communities and community spaces, and resilience comes in so many forms. And I know in a short window of town, Johnson is a resilient community. I'm so excited to be a part of it. I have questions too. I know there's big weeks here, but when you're looking for feet on the ground, I'm 2 of them. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Eric?
Well, a couple of things. Are there thoughts on moving monuments back to the building, because the town did acquire?
Several citizens have mentioned that.
Yeah.
Would be
I do.
willing to bet that there will be a plan shortly after.
You want to repeat that question?
Eric's question is there any plan to move the monuments back there if the town acquires the building?
The second thing was, I was hoping when I came tonight that I would hear more of a plan, and what I'm hearing is a wish and a hope. And that gives me pause and concern, because the reason we got rid of the building 30 years ago was because it wasn't being used. One thing. The other thing is we got money for it, 100,000. That with some other resources we had is how we built this building without using any taxpayer money. It was through that sale. It did put it back on the grand list, so it becomes a paying property. And like I said, it wasn't being used, and it's a high maintenance building. It's a very old building, so it's gonna have costs associated with it. So that was like a win-win. The concern I'm getting now is it's looking like a lose-lose. We're gonna be taking it off the grand list. And between the loss of revenue and the added cost of maintaining the building, you're getting up close to 1 cent of the grand list. And that's sort of the wrong direction we're going because of this time we're at, where we got 12+ properties that are out there for buyout. That's lost revenue. I don't know if you guys may know what that total is gonna be. If the Pownell property gets buyout, I mean, that's gonna be a huge amount of impact to our taxes. And that's the pause I'm having is, you know, we're taking on a building that's gonna be expensive on top of everything else on your plate. And if I'm not hearing a real good plan on what you're gonna use it for, I'm struggling to see the value of doing that. With my comment.
That was a comment, not a question.
Well, you have a question, Paul.
I'm trying to form it for the Eric's question. His comment was he has resistance because there's no plan. And there's gonna be buyouts happening. Yes, and I honestly, I could have told you to the pin how much the buyout properties were gonna cost us until recently, where we got a letter from the state that said they'll reimburse a portion of those taxes, but only for a 10-year period, only if they have enough money. And they were gonna reimburse. The letter said 100% for 5 years and 50% for 5 years, but I don't know 100% of what, land value or land plus structure. It's a gray area, but the state's gonna pay something to answer the buyouts. The gray area makes me not be able to tell you how much that burden's gonna be.
I trust Eric, you will say those words at the night of the vote.
Probably.
That'd be the best place to do it, probably.
I have one other question.
Did you wanna answer, Eric?
I was gonna say like, so I like hearing the historical context of, you know, that we had the building back long ago and that we sold it to Vermont Studio Center. And I think that's something interesting to look at is, you know, that went to a Johnson business and now it's coming back to Johnson. I don't know if I would hope that it would still go to a Johnson business again, but I worry that what if it went to a non-resident or someone not in our community, that then that control and that connection to Johnson wasn't there. So that's something I thought about, not to say that they would intentionally choose someone like that, but it's something to think about.
Yeah. Oh, another question?
In the new library addition, there's gonna be some community space, right? But I don't have any sense of how big it is and how accessible it is for the kinds of things that we would be looking at. This building, for, like, would it be a duplication of space in a way, or are this, you know, would that space already be very much used for library and community space programming that the library is doing and not available for the kinds of open possibilities that we're looking at tonight?
So the plan renovation of the historic part of the library, the addition will be entirely stacks and for resources, and the old part will be in art room, bathrooms. But the community space is really only from the fireplace to the front door, so it's quite small. It's great for evening lectures, but not for large gathering. We're not sure what the occupancy will be for that yet.
Thank you.
There's another question from this gentleman.
I started like a nature school program in Johnson and could think about doing some after school theater program or something with the building. But I was kind of thinking, I think it'd be really good if we don't have to work on the foundation right away, because can we get the property and not have to sink a bunch of money into it? That would be awesome. Sit on it for a second, see if we can make a community thing out of it. If we can't, then could we lease it to someone who has cash and wants to do something with a business? That's something that we could choose to do. In my imagination, it'd be awesome if we could get the property and then we could sell it. I know that there's obviously politics around that, where we would then have to give it back to the studio center if we decided, oh, it's too much. And then they would sell it, but my imagination is better. If we could sell it, get a bunch of cash, build some new building, and then we would get to choose who gets to be the corporate, money person, I guess. So I know that's kind of pushing this past my.
That'd be great.
I don't think we've thought about that.
I don't think it's gonna work.
Cracking flippers.
Jesse?
Yeah, so the story you told was really interesting. But I don't know if we're framing this right. I mean, to me, looking at the history, the town had it. They decided that it would be better to lease it to the studios. They did the lease because, for whatever reason, they decided that was a better use of the property. That's great. That's what the select board should be doing. Then you're saying that we sold it to them and we built this building here with that money.
If I could just,
So we got a new building out of it.
yeah, what happened is, but in the first place, that building was condemned, it was closed up, I don't know how many years, hopefully you weren't even alive yet.
Most of us. That was a long time ago.
I was still around, but Evan.
It was closed up, it was condemned, it was falling down, it was a really bad disrepair. When we took it over and fixed it up. And then when we did buy it, we bought that building and the old town clerk's office, the gym. And we gave the town enough, and we also got a grant, and we gave the town enough money to build this building. That's where the money from this building came from, sale of those two buildings, as well as the Freeman Foundation grant. No.
Amazing. So the history is that it was leased to an organization that could use it. Then it was sold, which allowed you to take on that burden, which you did, and graciously repaired the building. We got this building out of it. And now you're gonna sell it back to us for $1. Right? I mean, that sounds like a story.
Sounds like a gift to me.
That sounds like the story to me.
That's how the art school makes money.
I mean, we could just keep doing this.
I couldn't tell you how much money is actually gone to building over the years, but it's quite, pretty important renovation.
Do you have a question, Greg?
Yeah, I think for me, it's about capacity and, we look at the Jewett property. We've been a long time and I don't know, I haven't been around much lately, but I don't think we've made a heck of a lot of progress there. It's still sitting there. And that was a dream of a lot of people in town, to do something with that was gonna be productive for the town. I mean, I like this building, it's beautiful, but I think we've got some stuff behind us that we need to fix and finish before we take on another project. I guess that comes from my construction background, we don't leave open trenches and go start another one. Finish, and then we go to the next thing. I guess if you're just gonna let it sit for a while and I'd like to see some of the other things kind of finished before we take something. That's a big project then. And I don't think I haven't seen much progress. And I know you're working at it.
A lot of paperwork progress.
Well, it's tough, it's a lot of work. And you're adding, and I agree with that, I mean, you're adding more to what's. We haven't had capacity to finish that, is what I see.
I would disagree with that.
Well, what's been done, not even a road,
It doesn't
been 20 years.
It doesn't have to do with our capacity.
If you had the right grant people working that thing, you don't think you should have had a road in by now? I mean, come on.
I disagree.
Come on, well, I appreciate that. I can take the disagreement, but we all know that there hasn't been a blade of grass cut down in 20 years or more.
As far as that project goes, there's gonna be a boatload of questions, I'm sure. I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, full notice to proceed is shortcoming. There's a plan to have logging done this winter because we can't log because of bats in the summertime.
We had a
And the
notice.
idea is to break ground in the spring. Hopefully have it out to bid
This year.
December,
We're waiting on.
RC progress.
Yeah.
but that's not a road. That's it's
We're
a
waiting
bid for a
on,
road.
Well, it's progress.
Yep,
And I didn't know that.
paperwork progress, that's why I was saying that.
So it's coming.
You have more to say?
Well, I think great, that's a great point. You asked that question 6 months ago. There was a lot of unknowns. We had 5 projects over $500,000 and we didn't know where the cash was gonna come for to pay for it. But, you know, the biggest ones, we have Vermont Electric Co-op, public-private partnership. That's underway. That's gonna be completed here and paid out. You know, Lenway Lane was $500,000. That's now done. We're just waiting on reimbursement. We have, so those 2 are done. We have the library is gonna go out to bid hopefully Monday, and so that's gonna be done before December 26th. We have the industrial park, and that one is we're waiting on Act 250. Our biggest concern is we have to log before April 15th. And if Act 250 can get the approval, then we can get that in there and cleared, and then we can break ground in spring. If not, we'll have to wait till August 15th to break ground, and that'll be okay. But what's exciting is money's all of a sudden, you know, with the right people in place, things went from stagnant, and I think we all can agree that place was stagnant for a long time. When I first started, I thought it was probably the last idea to go forward. But then all of a sudden, the light switch went off and it's moving like wildfire now. Now nobody wants to stop it. And that's really exciting, you know, and that took a community to come together. And we had the bond vote and everybody's now behind something again. And here is another example of the community coming together and like, do you want this building or not? And if you come together behind it, you're gonna make it whatever it needs to be. You know, you look at that library, that's crazy. It got moved across town. But that was put together in 2 weeks by people who never wrote a grant before and got 1.7 million and moved the library. So I think anything can happen here if the community comes behind it. And I think that's what this vote is all about. And, you know, do you want to get behind it or not? There's no wrong answer because you're going to get behind the next thing.
Diana, you had your hand up.
Oh, it's probably not that. I found myself equally excited about the potential and the opportunity. And I felt like another thought I had was that maybe we could, in addition to adding a building to our owned by the town list, maybe it could replace a building that we currently have. Like if we look at Holcomb House and this low lecture hall, I don't have any idea if the Historical Society is interested in moving locations, but it seems like that could potentially be a great fit that would, it could replace that. Maybe it could replace the old mill house. Maybe it could, you know, be a better use for something that's currently happening someplace else. And I think, to speak to Eric's point, I think the idea that we don't have a definitive plan for the final use is an advantage rather than a liability. The only plan that needs to be made now is this the right time to acquire it for this offer? And the lack of a final outcome is leaving us all the options. And the Studio Center has been excellent stewards of that building. For them to consider basically gifting it back to the town is so unselfish. I feel like it would be kind of crazy not to take advantage of the opportunity. And I'd sure be interested in hearing some other reasons why I should vote against doing this. It just seems like such a clear win. And I hear that you see it as a lose-lose, but I guess I'd be interested in hearing any other explanation for why it wouldn't be good timing.
Donna's got one.
It's just a question. Could you explain what 1 cent on the grand list actually means in terms of people's taxes? I mean, does that mean, doesn't mean everyone's taxes goes up 1 cent, right? What does it?
Our tax rate's like 91 cents right now, so 1 cent on the tax rate would be 1.1% increase. So if your tax bill's $20,000, it'd be 220-ish per year, and that's just maintenance, not construction. And that's really off the cuff here, Donna. You're writing it down and quoting it. People are gonna be reading this going, this kid can't add.
Yeah, that's what I mean, and I think that's probably really people out there, just a rough idea.
Yeah, there was another question from. Sorry, Lois.
Oh, wait.
Joy. You're yielding to Lois, that's a smart move.
I just have a technical question, and that is there
survey of the parcel so that we know all the boundaries?
Yes.
Yes. Very nice one.
It's on file in the town clerk's office.
Right, it's in Vermont Studio Center's office. In Vermont Studio Center's office. The Studio Center's office.
Here, it's gotta be.
Yeah,
It's here.
got
It might be a good thing to hand out the night of the meeting.
Yeah.
The actual vote, that is. We've got plenty of copies, something.
Oh, yeah. We can keep loggers in business. Joy?
Thank you. My question is, I've heard a couple proposals to sit on the building and wait for a period of time to use it. My question would be, is the building usable to some capacity now? If we were able to bring in some form of programming and usage now, and if there was capacity, people willing to do it?
Go for it.
It's good, would be contingent on the evaluation of a structural engineer and it's for the state fire marshal to issue. As a public building, there's different requirements than if it were privately owned. And so since it's like owned by the town, it would have to be to a certain standard. But pending that structural analysis and the board's approval, you guys, I mean, they can do whatever it wants, right?
It could also be left building aside empty and not used since, oh, people correct them, 22, 23.
Yeah, I think
2 or 3 years, and there's nothing wrong with letting it sit.
we use it like once a year while I've been there.
But it hasn't taken any effect on the building itself to leave it sit like that.
Yeah, I don't think since before COVID, has it been used with any regularity?
Was it $6.60 per 100,000?
Yeah, I'm so sorry, I forgot your name. Pat and I sat down in my office last week and we put it into our budget spreadsheet. And we came up with the increase of, say it one more time.
I wrote them down right, $6.60 per 100,000.
I think that's right. And
It seems,
I'll finalize that.
It does seem.
Who's Rosemary?
Oh, $6 have it. So if you have $100,000 house, you have $10 tax bill goes to $16.
yeah, okay.
It used to raise $12,000.
I was thinking in terms of tax bill amount raises the line, just do 1% backwards, so.
So maybe we could refine the presentation for next meeting.
We could do an example based on this year's approved budget. We don't even have next year's budget.
Yeah.
Taxes are going up either.
Yeah.
I would recommend that you just have it really round numbers. For every $100,000 that your property is appraised at, this is what it'll be. And every school budget does it, and we always did it. And that
We will with our regular
we'll
budget,
have tomorrow morning. And that way people can say, oh, my house is valued at $300,000. It's gonna cost me $16.
George?
I was just going to say that, we're not talking about any income stream either. There's plenty of, you can keep that building empty and it won't cost you anything at all. If you start heating it, or putting power to it, there should be some kind of income stream that sets it off. Somebody's renting it, somebody's using it. I mean, at least to cover the expenses. So I think that, for the expenses, then I think those could easily be offset by you running the fees.
I think we rent it back to the studio.
I have a question for George, there was a question earlier about hazardous materials in the building. And we elected, as part of the building inspection, not to have lead and asbestos and so forth testing until we had a conversation with some of the citizens and see where the interest was. Because that obviously has more costs. So when you guys did the work.
Yeah, everything was there is no longer there. There was asbestos around with hot air all the time, but there was asbestos around the pipes, and everything's gone. And the lead, everything has been taken down and put back up new. I mean, all the woodwork, there isn't
I mean, you can't say you can't find lead, all the windows were scraped down, they rebuilt every window in that place, put all the mullins, new mullins in, they rebuilt every window and. I mean, they've done an amazing job on that here. Put up store windows, so they made us leave the original window, part of the historic preservation, so it has the original windows. And was totally rebuilt. So it might be some lead, you never know where the lead might show up, but I would say this is slim chance.
No, that's really good here.
The other thing I'd like to say is that's really the town's history. I mean, I remember when we took it over, it was a huge outcry. And when we tried to save the building, but that is really the history of the town. You know, it's probably one of the oldest buildings in town. And even if it's that empty, it looks beautiful up there on the hill. So, you know, I think town would do well.
I think we're all grateful for the stewardship. The studio's had a strong shepherd, so thank you for that.
Are there any final questions?
Thanks, Gregor. I'd just like to direct this final question to the future generations of Johnson, if they're interested. Their voice isn't here tonight, but that's all I'm going to say.
Thanks. On to the next one.
Thank you for coming out.
Thank you very much. Again, the vote is on Tuesday in the elementary school. Oh, yeah.
Oh, you wanna wait just a minute, we just go. Okay.
Okay, I would entertain, next up was an additional item for accepting the resignation of an employee. I would entertain a motion to accept the resignation letter from the town administrator.
So I move to accept the resignation of the town administrator with regrets and to wish him well in his new endeavor.
Second.
Further discussion, are you happy with that? Absolutely. Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. Meeting ended at 7:47.